guess my thought process behind the market videos, those are actually designed to give me more practice at making videos. They weren't meant to be an integral part of the channel, and it turns out that for some reason they've grown a life of their own. People just seem interested to find out how much computers sell for. Now, I make no comment as to whether or not I think it's a good thing or a bad thing that computers, the retro computers, have become quite expensive in some cases. It just is, and I find it interesting. So, you know, it sort of provides a service in a roundabout way, both to people that may want to be looking to move on parts of their collection, but also people looking to acquire new stuff. Hang on, there's someone at the door. Oh, hey, how you going, mate? Yeah, excellent, cheers. Holy moly, I wasn't expecting it today. Cheers, mate, thanks, see ya. Holy snappy duck shit, Batman. Well, this has turned into a live unboxing. Now, what I need to do is I need to get this out of the way. Holy crap, well this is a turn up for the books. I was testing out a live stream just before, just to talk about a couple of things I've been up to and the channel and all that sort of stuff. I got a knock on the door from the postie and this is what landed. So this is something which I hinted at buying online to the Twitter sphere a few days ago, and I'm surprised at how quickly it's arrived. So massive respect to both the seller and the fine people at Australia Post. So yeah, the original reason I'd done the previous live stream is just to kind of knock over a few birds with one stone. But the biggest bird I want to knock over is the Sinclair ZX Spectrum Next. Now, unless you've been living under a rock for the last few days, the issue 2 Kickstarter for the ZX Spectrum Next has just started. It's just launched. Last time I checked, it was just shy of £1 million, and I'm one of the backers. So yeah, about 2,500 backers so far within the first couple of days. That's really quite astonishing, but not really surprising in a sense, because the ZX Spectrum Next, if you've been following my market reports in the last month or so, the ZX Spectrum Next, a lot of the ones that were, well, a number of them that came up on the first Kickstarter, which people waited about 2.5 years to get for various reasons. A lot of them have come up for sale at really very high prices, and the prices have actually been achieved. We're talking like anywhere between $1,300 and $1,500 for the accelerated versions. A recent sale on eBay Australia, $660 reduced for the base model, which is probably getting a bit closer to where maybe they should be, in my opinion. But now the issue 2 has landed, even though it's going to take about 12 months or so, scheduled to take about 12 months or so to come to fruition and to get into the hands of the backers. My hot take is that I reckon if you look at a sell in issue 1, you might find it a bit more difficult, because there are probably going to be people out there who will just think, well, sod it, I'll just back the issue 2 instead, and I'll wait, because any retro computer is really a discretionary purchase. You know, you don't have to have one, and I'm sure people are happy to wait. Like, if you had the choice between, you know, getting something now and paying, I don't know, off the top of my head, let's say if you had to have it now and you wanted to pay $1,000, or if you wanted to say wait for 12 months and only pay $500, I think a lot of people would be happy to, have the delayed gratification in order to save a few bucks. But I also seen on the around the traps that some people have ordered multiples of the issue 2 Next in terms of backing. And my own opinion on that is, if they're looking to try and flip the issue 2, I think they're going to be disappointed. And the reason I say this is because the first time around, the Next wasn't as well publicised as it is this time around. And also, Kickstarters back then, there's a lot of them had so much risk attached to them that people would perhaps be a little bit wary of backing the Kickstarter. So now that this team has a track record of actually delivering what they promise, I think there's going to be a lot more people jumping on. The fact that they've already had over roughly £1 million worth of backing as of right now, it's like 2 days, 2.5 days after going live. I think that speaks volumes. And there's still not quite 4 weeks left to go. So yeah, what it all boils down to, and originally in the video I was going to do like some sort of thing trying to describe how microeconomics works and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not Salman Khan. If you want that sort of stuff, go to Khan Academy, they do fine work. But a couple of things kind of struck me about that. First up, in terms of economic concepts, you've got the one of substitution, so whether or not potential buyers will see an issue 1 issue 2, as a good substitute for an issue 1. I think a lot of people will, so that's going to, I guess, make the issue 1s less attractive to people that just want the Spectrum Next and don't care if it's an issue 1 or an issue 2, which may reduce demand. And there's also the whole thing about time. Like anything to do with convenience, there's always going to be a cost attached. So if you want the convenience of having a Spectrum Next in your hands right now, by all means, grab one off eBay. And if you're trying to sell one, I think you're going to be. I think the window of opportunity to make mega bucks off of an issue 1, that ship may have sailed. Maybe if you hang on to it for a few years and collectors want that issue 1, then maybe. It all depends on how many issue 2s are produced. And again, that goes back to another economic concept of not just supply and demand, but scarcity, really. So if the issue 2, let's say they end up making. Well, they made about 3,000 issue 1s. Let's say that they end up making, hypothetically, 12,000 issue 2s. And I'm using that number deliberately because that would mean that for all the Spectrum Nexts in the world, only 1 out of 5 of them is going to be an issue 1 as opposed to an issue 2, which would make it, by association, slightly rarer. Now, whether or not that's going to have an effect on values, who knows? I'm just a guy who geeks out about old computers, who just happened to do economics at uni. That's sort of how it came about. And like I said, this channel was never meant to be about the economics side of computers. I've got to say, massive respect to the people that I bought this from. This is some really good packaging. They've done a fantastic job. I bought it from a seller who deals in a lot of this sort of stuff, and I'm really impressed with how they've packed it. They clearly know what they're doing. Even stuff like taking this roll here, and that's got the cable for this device in this big roll of, this may have come from bubble wrap or something. This is really, really well packaged, and I've got to say, massive respect to these people. I was able to grab this very quickly on Saturday night. Now I say very quickly because this is a microcomputer which they have a big following, not necessarily in Australia. They have a strong following in Australia, but their biggest following is in the UK. Yeah, spoiler alert, I think you can tell what this is because I'm a bit of a fanboy of these. I fanboy like you would not believe. But I managed to get this one for a really good price because it's kind of stuffed. I don't think it's terminal. I think it's enough there for me to make it work, and I actually want a proper repair project because I've already got one of these that's absolutely immaculate. In fact, I'm too scared to open it. That is how immaculate my particular example of this one is. And I know I keep saying it, I probably should post it one day, and I probably will. In fact, I may even need to, and I really don't want to do this, but I may need to even borrow a couple of chips from my immaculate example just to do some testing on this one. That's interesting. Error, YouTube is not receiving enough data to maintain true streaming. As such, viewers will experience buffering. Well, I'll be buffered. Buffer me sideways. Buffer me gently with a chainsaw. See, this is the problem with this sort of ghetto sort of stuff. It's really challenging. I probably should, if I get serious about this, I will set up a studio one day, but I've got other more pressing issues to consider at the moment, such as how I'm going to pay for my ZX Spectrum Next. The reviews of the original ZX Spectrum Next are very, very positive, and the issue 2 promises to be just as good, if not better, for various reasons. Also, I think that the actual ZX Spectrum Next team deserve to be supported, and by actually signing up for the Kickstarter, you're supporting them and you're helping to grow the community by, because obviously the more people that have got these in their hands, they are going to be more inclined to develop for, because you can actually buy games for it and that sort of stuff, which is fantastic. And yeah, I guess you can guess what this is. This is, I've got to say, and the irony is not lost on me, but I'm extolling the virtues of the ZX Spectrum whilst unboxing a BBC Micro. The word of the day is juxtaposition. So, yeah, BBC Micro. Some keys are missing. Apparently the symptoms it gives are a long beep. Could be an issue with a keyboard, it could be an issue with one of the chips, one of the RAM chips. I couldn't tell you exactly off the top of my head what the issues are, but I know that there are some known issues. Yeah, so the issue is it doesn't always fire up, and when it does fire up, apparently it gives a language error. Now, what this means is that the machine can't find the language ROM. So it makes me wonder whether the basic ROM chips may be going a bit bad, because a bad chip, a bad ROM chip or something bad somewhere along the line can also cause these sorts of errors. So again, I may have to temporarily borrow stuff out of the really nice Beeb that I have just to get it working and to diagnose if I need new parts or chips or whatever. I can order them from the UK for a reasonable price. Getting back to this keyboard, so I can either buy the individual keycaps that I need off another Beeb for a few pounds each, but if too many of them are Ronda and Katut, or if the actual keyboard itself is exhibiting issues, then I can just buy a whole new keyboard, as in a second-hand keyboard that's in good condition, for about 30 quid plus postage. So that might be the go. In fact, this A key also looks a bit. Let's have a look. Keycaps, I reckon. See, that keycap's also broken. So look, I reckon that's probably something more for a future video where I go through and look at the problem. So it's going to make more economic sense just to get a new keyboard than it is to buy the individual keycaps. This is a little bit exotic. It's not the kind of one you'd normally find in the UK. This is normally found in the Asia Pacific region, because this was assembled in Hong Kong by Wong Electronics, who was used by Acorn. Acorn outsourced some assembly for the Asia Pacific market, Australia, New Zealand, and some other Asia Pacific countries. I'll have to look that up, to Wong's in order to be a bit closer to the markets where these were being purchased. And an interesting fact about the Wong's BBCs is that their power supplies are a little bit different to the, and you can see there it's a Wong's electronic power supply there. The Wong's power supplies don't have the reefer caps that cause issues in most other BBC micros. So there's a good chance that I'll be able to power this up without needing to recap. I mean, there's probably a couple of other caps that could do with replacement, but the biggest culprits with these, the reefer caps, that's not an issue. So having the Wong's is actually pretty different. It also looks like there's a mod that's been made somewhere along the line to get some more ventilation into the case. Why that's on top of the power supply, I don't know. I've seen this once before on a YouTube video. It almost looks like it's been done from a template that was in a magazine or something like that. So I'm going to have to look into that, because if you look closely, you can see that that's been chiseled out, it's been modified by hand. It wasn't like that in the factory. I'm going to have to look up and find out what the story is with this. Stardot might be able to tell me that. If I wanted to get this back to original condition, I could always, fill that and repaint the case, or I could just keep it because it's part of the story. And also, this one here has got a ZIF socket sideways in the ashtray, which is good because that means if I want to put extra RAM, like sideways RAM, or run ROMs or that sort of stuff, that's actually a really neat feature. So I'm not having to hack the ashtray out of my good Beeb, and I can use this as my everyday Beeb to go along with the Master and the Elk. Now, one more thing. Yeah, it looks like an Australian plug, so I don't know whether or not this is what Barson were putting on the plugs when they were being sold in Australia. So for all I know, this may not be an Australian delivered Beeb. It could be an Asian Beeb that somehow made it to Australia. But if it was delivered in Australia or New Zealand, it would have had the traditional 3-pin plug like that. Now this plug was made by HPM Australia. It could be, for all I know, Barson could have fitted these locally. And yeah, so that is my new project, which you'll probably see eventually. Speaking of which, as far as projects go, I did a quick poll on YouTube a couple of weeks back, and by YouTube I mean Twitter. Turns out that it's split. People either want me to do something with one of my speckies or my Beeb Master. And until next time, see you later. And now it's telling me I've got an excellent connection. GG YouTube.